What's up, everyone? I've never actually, I don't think, put this into a video. I've said it here and there, and I've kind of little pieces of it, but I want to share something with you. You guys must understand this. Pure biblical doctrine. Okay? It says that your works on earth cannot save you in the afterlife. It can't. No matter how good of a person you are, how many people you help, nothing that you can do on earth will save you in the afterlife. The only thing that can is believing in the Son of God, that he performed miracles, he shed his precious blood on the cross, absolved you of your sins, and rose again and conquered death on the third day. And to believe that with the entirety of your heart is all you need to go to heaven, not your earthly works. Now, Jesus was a Jew, and according to the biblical lineage, he comes from King David's family. David and Goliath, that same David. The New Testament, incidentally, the New Testament was written by Jews in Greek. The English version didn't come out until 1611. The King James version. King James, who incidentally also wrote a demonology book around the same time, and was a homosexual, by the way. That King James. That was written in English. Incidentally, if you're keeping count, King David was bisexual, too, by the way. Look into that. There was no English back then. And the New Testament wasn't written in Hebrew. So what's left? It was written in Greek by Jews. They were called Hellenistic Jews. These were Jews that wrote in Greek. Now, I've made a couple of videos on homosexuality in the Bible. That original word, this goes for Corinthians, which was written in Greek. This was what was in Martin Luther's Bible when he started the Lutheran Church. And it was in the German Bible until 1983. The word is arsenokotai, which means boy molesters. It wasn't homosexual. So, with that being said, why would the Jews write the Bible, including Revelation 2:9 and 3:9, which called the Jews the synagogue of Satan? Now, that's what Jesus calls them. Now, Jesus was a Jew. The Old Testament was written by Jews, so coincidentally, the Jews are the chosen people. What else did they do? Well, they took away the respect of women, because in the Egyptian times, where the Jews supposedly came from, the Egyptians revered women, because they were portals to bring new life onto this planet. Suddenly, that becomes the punishment of sin in the Old Testament. The early Jews fucked everything up. I'm sorry, they did. So here's the thing. Revelation 2:9 and Revelation 3:9, right? Revelation 2:9 and 3:9, where Jesus calls the Jews the synagogue of Satan. Well, they literally are. But he's talking astrotheologically. What does that mean? Saturn is Satan. And the Jewish religion goes back to Saturnalia worship. So when he says the Jews are the synagogue of Satan, he's saying they're the synagogue of Saturn. You have to understand this kind of stuff to be able to understand what you're reading. Remember, original words have meaning and importance, and that's where the power lies. When they invert and pervert things to show you symbols, things of that nature, when they do all this stuff, and you guys are just quick to point it out, and then you guys make little podcasts about it, where you just point it out and say, oh, it's Satanism. You guys don't know what you're talking about. You have to go to the origin of everything, because the power lies there. Now, the last point I want to make is, if you believe that the Bible is a historically accurate book, which it's not, but if you do, what civilization writes in their own history books that they are the bad guys, like the Jews did in the New Testament? See, the Jews at the time were smart. They were. There were a lot of things. As my mentor Jordan Maxwell said, There are a lot of things, but stupid ain't one of them. I miss that guy. See, what happened is, they become the protected class now that you see with gender, race, sexuality, society, and all that right now. There is societal benefit to be the oppressed people. And who are the oppressed people? The Jews and the Muslims, not the Christians. So the Christians get shit on. Now suddenly the Christians think, well, we're getting shit on and everyone else can't be talked about. We must be the real deal. You're worshiping a Jewish Messiah from a Jewish book. And the Jews got it wrong from the beginning. Abraham wasn't even the first person, even though Abram was his name, goes back to Brahma, and Sarah goes back to Sarai or Saraswati. Brahma and Saraswati, that's Hindu. It's just as old as the Jews. So, what's the point of all this? The Old Testament, the beginning of the Old Testament, not only makes the Jews the chosen people, even though they wrote the book, but then in the New Testament, they write things against them. And they knew that they were going to get a lot of stuff for it down the road, because there is victimhood points. So that's all I really wanted to share with you guys, to be honest with you. Incidentally, Abram didn't discover or create monotheism. In fact, at that very same time period, where he supposedly came from Uruk, which is modern-day Iraq, or olden times Iraq, I should say, he came and he supposedly discovered monotheism, the one God. Well, guess what? Way before then, in 1367 BC, there was a very special pharaoh named Akhenaten. And Akhenaten created monotheism. In fact, during the time the Jews were writing the Old Testament, they found fertility gods buried deep in Israel, or the land of Israel, Palestine, whatever you want to call it. For you who are new to this channel, you have to understand is they could all get it equally. Because when you cut a tree down, okay? When you cut a tree down, you don't cut its branches off. You don't go and vote someone else in or do this or do that. You have to cut it at the root. And when you cut it at the base, the whole thing collapses. And the base of all this is the Abrahamic religions. And I've been waiting my entire life for someone to use anything but logic and common sense to disprove religion. So if you go through my channel, you'll find proof and things that actually make sense.